When I first tried Devil Daggers, I bounced off it really hard. I just couldn't really get it. At the time, which was years ago at this point, my taste was simply not developed enough for it. But this year, I got really into Hyper Demon, and I fell in love with it. I cleared it, and I thought that, hey, maybe I should come back to DD and see if I feel any differently. 150 hours later, spread across months of play, I achieved the famous 500 seconds of survival. Devil Daggers' one and only Steam achievement. My body was shaking, and I was jumping around my room. It feels like this game was the final step in solidifying my relatively newly developed arcade taste. I think I'm going to spend the entire rest of my gaming life chasing that same type of high in every single action game. So I hope you can feel the love I have for this game and its developers with every word in this commentary. So here's my 8 minutes and 33 seconds in blissful hell. Now before we actually start, there's a couple things I need to explain, and that is the spawn structure of the game and what the hell this thing on the screen is. Now the spawn structure is actually very reminiscent of shmups. How it works is, you have waves at specific points on a timer, and those waves will spawn at that specific second regardless of anything else. So it doesn't matter if you've cleared the last batch of enemies, the next one will come at their appropriate time. What this means is, Devil Daggers has this inherent momentum. You're always supposed to catch up to the spawns, because if you don't, the field will get overrun. Now, there's no point in me trying to explain this with words, I'll just show it a bit later in the run, but you're gonna see, at some point I lose full control of the board and I get completely overrun. Now this little minimap, this is actually not part of the game, at least not in actual gameplay. This is the top-down view from the replay that I'm using to illustrate both some positioning stuff in the run, but also how stark the difference is between Devil Daggers as an FPS and Devil Daggers as a top-down shooter. It's not like the top-down shooter is a bad game, don't get me wrong. The FPS just has so much more to it. You have real vision control, you have way more granular and complex aiming, and you have way tougher time positioning. So now we got that out of the way, we can actually begin the run itself. See, here is the first enemy wave spawning. It's a spawner, I know, a little ironic. It's a spawner that spews out these waves of skulls. Now these waves of skulls are made up of Skull 1, which is kind of the big boy, the boss of the wave, and is also the only one that drops a gem. I'll get into gems a bit later. But the rest of the wave is just these little small skulls that die in one hit, as you can see here. Now, important thing to understand about them is that they cannot catch up to you if you bunny hop or if you do slight strafing. So how they work is that they're supposed to just keep you moving, so they don't actually catch up. The only skull that can actually catch up to you are the Skull 2, which I'll show a bit later, and the Skull 3, which are kind of like these big turtles. Now what interesting thing you're going to notice in our first key strategy is I'm not killing the spawners, I'm leaving them alive on purpose. And that might seem like I'm making the game harder for myself for no reason. Well, I am, but there is actually a reason behind it. See, when I kill a skull, you're gonna see these gems right here floating into me. This is our central resource. You can essentially see them as kind of arcade scoring, because it levels up our gun, and at some point is going to start accumulating shmup bombs for us. Which is essentially why we're leaving all these spawners alive. Now this is actually a very important enemy to address. These are the spiders. How they work is they don't actually try to kill you. Well, not directly. What they do is they suck up all the gems on the field. So if I don't kill this spider quick enough, all the gems that I kill from these skulls are going to float into him and get eaten, and once he eats them, he spews out these little annoying traps on the ground. Now, if a spider has spewed out a trap, you've messed up somewhere along the way. So they're enemy priority number 1. Whenever they spawn on the field, on the board, you want to kill them as soon as possible. Now you're gonna notice that some of these skulls, while they seem to look almost identical, some of them just float around and others chase me. Now the chasing ones spawn from this type of spawner. This is spawn 2. It has 2 gems on the side compared to just 1, and its skull spawn is the only one that actually directly tracks you. You see all the other ones, how they work is they float around, and every, I believe, 1.8 seconds or 1.5 seconds they change directions. Don't get me wrong, they're very deadly and they take up space, which directly tries to kill you, but they're not as dangerous as the skull 2s that chase you. Now that's actually the reason why I killed the big spawners, because they spawn the skull 2, and it makes the game way more unpredictable. Now I know that you can leave them alive if you're good enough at the game, and you can just get more gems that way. But while I do my best to farm as much as possible, I am not that good, so I just kill them to make my life easier. Notice how it chases me, just like the small skulls. Now something interesting you're gonna notice is you can actually hear them. They're one of the few enemies in the game with a distinct sound effect, and that's actually important. Since they're one of the few enemies that actually chase on your tail, and also one of the few enemies that can actually catch up to you regardless of bunny hops or strafing, it's very important for you to actually hear when they're on your ass. So that's how every once in a while I seemingly just turn around for no reason and boom, it's right there on my ass. That's why I turn around, I can hear their sound. As you can see here, as I said, I kill these big spawners because it's just, they make life so much harder. Not only do they take up space, but skull 2s are just really deadly. But these skulls, you can see that I kind of have a easy time maneuvering around them because they're predictable. They might float around at random intervals and random directions, but they're predictable in the sense that you can kind of see them coming. You'll see that sometimes I shoot the shotgun, sometimes I shoot the stream. Now, to be completely honest, I'm not sure which is better to do all the time, and I don't really think there's a right answer. It all depends on context. You'll notice that the shotgun shoots a lot of damage at once, but it's also more aim intensive. It's more aiming, less tracking. However, as you can see, when I shoot, it has a little bit of a cooldown after I shoot. So that cooldown is actually dangerous because you can just walk into a skull that you weren't able to kill because your gun was on cooldown. So there's some risk reward there to using it. Which is why you see that a lot of the times in the run I'll be using the stream just to be able to react to anything I see in front of me. Now it's a good time to talk about how I actually managed to have this massive wave of skulls behind me, and yet I'm not dying. This is because I'm doing these micro, or I guess in this case, big, large circle strafes. Now, as you can see here in the minimap, the skulls can't actually keep up with my circle strafing. They follow along, but they don't actually get to me. And that's kind of the secret to it. A lot of players, what they're gonna do is they're gonna focus all of their attention on these skull waves. They're gonna try to clear them as quick as possible. But all that does really is have you neglect the spawners, have you neglect the important skulls that actually drop gems, like these. And it's just, you're gonna lose control. You're gonna set behind the timer, and the next wave is gonna start. And before you realize it, you can't kill quick enough. So just let them float behind you. They're really not a threat if you're paying attention. And here we see the first, I'd say, really tricky wave. The Centipede is a very dangerous enemy to be left alive on the field because they take up a lot of space and also they chase you after a certain point. However, this Centipede does not spawn alone, it spawns with a spider. If you notice, I completely ignore the Centipede. Now you don't always need to ignore it. Sometimes if it's at a good RNG spawn, I'll kind of scrape it a bit under it, and then I'm gonna kill the spider. But I'll always be moving towards the spider. The spider is a #1 priority. Once you kill them, you can focus on everything else. Now here is a great opportunity for me to present a really interesting tech that you only really pick up from playing. So how enemy behavior works is these skulls are going to do their best not to go under a centipede. So notice how I go under the centipede and I'm incredibly safe despite there being a massive wave of skulls over me. That's because I know that skulls don't go under centipedes. Their AI is programmed in such a way that they get pushed out. So that's really one very key tip for centipedes, because centipedes are one of the enemy type that really give new players trouble because they're just so complex to kill. They have this row of gems under them, and to scrape it you have to have some space, you have to have actual tracking. It's pretty difficult. So if you're struggling with them as a new player, don't worry, I struggle with them for many hours. Now, since we've leveled up our gun so much, it's time to talk a little bit about the gems again. So there are, I believe, 4 or 5 levels to the gun. I do not remember the exact gem thresholds for each. However, it's best to get the max gun or almost the max level gun before the triple centipede spawn we're gonna see soon. And that is done by having really efficient farming. Now, I love farming in Devil Daggers because it's such a great way to valorize the waiting room. Because in these type of auto-scroll shmup type games, the better you get, the more boring early sections become. So having that actual layer of scoring, of accumulating resources, gives you something to do in these waves that are really not as engaging as the later ones. Something else I really love is the slow motion you get when you level up. Now, some people assume that this is just a little visual flair, but it actually has, as you can see, mechanical implications. It gives you time to kind of almost in a Matrix-like way shoot out all the gems around you and all the skulls. It actually, funny enough, it shows what you could do if you were playing like a perfect machine. The game slows down and you can see how much better you could be playing every single frame if you could actually keep up. Here I finish off the centipede. And now, as you can see, suddenly I'm killing the spawners. Weird, right? Well, no, because a really tough wave is coming up. And I personally do not feel comfortable enough to be able to farm in those tough waves, so it's time to clear all of them slowly. Every spawner obviously gives a gem, so it's not like it's a massive waste to kill them. Also, another thing I forgot to mention, you'll notice that with every gun level, what actually changes is the shotgun gets a tighter spread, so it almost transforms from a shotgun to a sniper, and you just shoot way more daggers in general. You're gonna notice that in the early part of the run, I was having a hard time shooting these skulls. I had to actually track them very precisely and I had to aim, but here I'm shooting so many daggers that they now just die by me looking in their general direction. Now you notice that I'm starting to clear the small skulls. That's because while they were easy enough to avoid in these early waves, they're not gonna be as easy now. Now this is the wave I'm talking about. We have a spider, which I kill, but then we have a second spider. And if you saw, there is a third spider right there. 3 spider spawns at once, and they're all gonna suck up your gems unless you kill them. Now I wanna say that this is probably the first proper quote-unquote filter wave. Because what usually happens is people see the centipede spawn, they are now panicking. Do I kill the centipede? What do I do? Do I go to the spiders? What you want to do is you want to kill the spiders as #1 priority as always. Kill them as efficiently and as quickly as possible. Then see if you can scrape the centipede without having to bother with the skulls. Because the centipede is also higher priority than skulls. Now, I do my best, but I am not successful. But notice how instead of focusing on the centipede and kind of trying to play only around it to scrape it, I just kind of keep moving in my direction. I accept that I took an L, I wasn't able to get under the centipede, I wasn't able to scrape it, so I just keep walking and I start focusing on what I can focus. this is something really key about the game. Just because your initial plan on the frame doesn't work doesn't mean that you cannot salvage something out of it. You missed a shot, no problem, keep going and just do whatever you can. So I miss the centipede scrape, but I kill some skulls, and I also go for these spawners. You want to be efficient, and speed is the name of the game because, as I said, waves will keep coming. You do not have the luxury to play it slow. Now, the centipede itself went underground. That's actually a really tricky thing they do, because now the centipede essentially deposits itself in the next batch of enemies, which isn't really what you want. If the centipedes didn't do that, I could have just cleared the skull wave before these spiders spawn, and I could have just scraped it in peace. Now again, another wave of spiders, just as deadly as the last one. Thankfully, I get pretty lucky with the RNG and my aim is on point. Here, as I said, I'm trying to look for a scrape on the centipede, but I'm not able to find it, so instead I just clear whatever I can. Now I kind of do a side move to scrape it. Remember, gems don't float into you if you're shooting. If you're wondering why I sometimes just stop shooting out of nowhere, it's because I'm letting the gems float into me. Now every gem has a 10-second duration. If you miss those 10 seconds, the gem despawns and is gone, and you do not want that in any way. It seems like I'm really stressing the gems, but you're gonna see why they're so key a bit later in the run when we get into the shmup bomb section. Now this is actually the first time in the entire run that we've had a pretty clear board, and you can see all the mayhem with the blood, but since we were farming for so long, we have no rest for the wicked. A wave of 6 basic spawners, but instead of them being in the arena allowing you to kind of circle around them and find the gems easily, you notice that sort of have placed them in 2 opposite sides outside the arena. This means that you cannot actually comfortably walk behind them to get the gem. You have to either wait for them to spin, or you have to walk on the little tiny edge at the behind them, which is really not suggested. Now here I just play around their natural spinning, and I immediately go for the scrape right here. Yep, the centipede is dead. Now this time I'm not farming anything, I'm just killing spawners as soon as I can because we're getting into the really tough parts of the game. There's no comfortable space for farming here in my book. Now here, right here, we see that I shot out my first homing gems. You can think of them as shmup bombs. They aim themselves, they're incredibly high damage, they pop gems almost instantly. You shoot them to clear the board. This is why I refer to them as a shmup bomb, not only because you accumulate them through quote-unquote scoring like a shmup bomb, but also because in functionality essentially what it is. You clear the board because you're getting overwhelmed. Now, it seems like in this moment I wasn't really getting overwhelmed, but what I was doing is clearing the board because the triple centipedes are coming. Now, if you do not have all of these enemies dead by the point of the timer when the triple centipedes spawn, you are screwed, and you'll see why. So right here, I just shot out like a couple of homing daggers. It was like, I believe 10 or so. You just hold down the button just for a little bit. Now you don't want to tap the button because you're going to shoot a homing dagger shotgun. You want to just slightly hold it to shoot out a couple just to make sure all of these spawners and these skulls die. Now this is the triple centipedes. This is a wave that relies heavily on your intuition that you're going to build up while you play. But the best tip I can give is make sure you are roughly in this type of position right here. You can clearly see them where they're spawning from and where they're flying towards you. This is going to let you do this. You can scrape one of them really solidly, right? And this is a lot of gems. Now if you've been farming correctly, once we let these gems float into us, we get the final level. Now this makes you an absolute beast, but of course you had to earn it. Now you're gonna notice that I'm not going for a second scrape, not at all. What I'm gonna start doing is I'm gonna start circle strafing the arena, but circle strafing in a zigzag pattern. This is gonna make it so the centipedes that are chasing behind me do not actually catch up. They're still on my ass, they put pressure, and they light a fire under my ass, but they don't actually catch up to kill me. And what I'm gonna do is I circle and I start clearing these spiders that spawn. Now this is very important. If these spiders are left alive for longer than they have to be, they're gonna suck up all those big juicy gems you saw on the centipede. That big gem scrape we did, the spiders will suck up all of that and you're gonna miss it. And this is the level 2 or 3 spider. Now this bad boy is super tanky. However, we got our final level gun, which means that I believe they take about 5 shotguns to the face. A very important tip I forgot to mention about spiders in general is you don't want to just blindly shoot at them. You have to make sure that anytime you shoot, you're hitting their weak spot. Because if you don't hit their weak spot, they close their mouth and they become invulnerable for a little bit. And as you saw earlier in the run, if anything goes wrong in your kind of plan, you have to immediately reconsider everything. You have to reposition your aim, everything. So you don't want anything to go wrong. So what you're gonna see is I'm holding my gun, I'm not shooting, and I'm waiting until I have a proper opportunity to shoot its face. Yeah, that was about 5. 5 shotgun blasts to the face at this level of gun kills the big spiders. Now another wave of spiders. As you notice, see, I'm doing the zigzagging. I'm not doing it perfectly because I'm only human, but you're supposed to zigzag perfectly. Another very important thing to note is I'm kind of circle strafing in sort of the middle circle of the arena. This is because if you circle strafe way too on the edges, you're not gonna have space for scraping later. But if you circle strafe too close to the middle, the centipedes are going to tangle up very deadly. Very deadly, because then they become unpredictable. See, a pattern you're gonna notice in Devil Daggers is that enemies are at their deadliest when they become unpredictable. Apologies, a little bit of a technical issue there, so we had to roll the footage back. But yeah, that's about 5 shots to the skull. And now we're getting the next wave of skulls, of spiders, apologies. Now you're gonna notice that I'm kind of doing a little bit of scrapes. That's very risky. I honestly, unless you see a really good opportunity for it, I wouldn't exactly suggest it because as you can see, the gems start floating into the spiders and who knows what's gonna happen. You could miss a little bit, hit their shell, the spider closes down, and now suddenly everything is going to chaos. Notice how the big spider is sucking up these gems that we saw? Yeah, you don't want that to happen, so kill it as quick as possible. And now that all the spiders are clear, it's gonna be 6 spiders in these 2 waves. Now you can actually try to scrape. Sometimes you're gonna get lucky, sometimes not, but here I got pretty lucky. I managed to kill the centipede with a single scrape here. And now I forgot to talk about these type of spawners. These are the craziest spawners. These are the level 3 spawners. They have 4 gems on each side you need to kill them. And they also spawn skull level 3s. Now these bad boys are not only tanky, they can also catch up to you despite you bunny hopping. And they are a very high priority target for that reason. The spawner that spawns them in general is very high priority because if you leave them, they're just gonna flood the zone and you're gonna have a really bad time. As you can notice, I'm not even trying to scrape the centipedes because they are lower priority than these spawners. It's very key that you kill them. So you just go with the natural flow, the natural spinning of these spawners, and just kind of clean them one by one here. Now again, if you clear these skulls, you can go for a scrape. Pretty good scrape right there. We got a couple of gems. Now notice how they were flicking. Now this means that their time was ticking down. I don't know if I was able to grab them, or at least majority of them, but that was a mistake on my part. I should have tried to hold off my fire and let them float and then continue. But that's not always going to be, you don't always have the luxury to do that. Another pretty good scrape, I must have missed some gems there. Okay, that's one down. Now this spawn right here, the Leviathan, is an absolute nightmare. I'm gonna do a little bit of a spoiler here for the run. I don't get to kill him at all. He's incredibly difficult to kill, and he's basically like a souped up spawner. He has, I believe, 6 gems on each side of the field, and these gems take a hell of a beating. So what I suggest if you're a new player, especially if you're trying to go for 500 seconds, it's not necessary to kill him. It's good if you can, but as you can see, as you'll be able to see in my run, I don't kill him, and he just stays alive. So what he does is, he plops down in the middle, he has this mouth at the bottom. And this mouth, essentially, if you walk under it, you're dying instantly, you're getting sucked up. But skulls will get sucked up into the mouth and get spewed out from the top as upgraded skulls. Now, upgraded skulls are an absolute pain in the ass, and you never ever want to see them. If you see them, you should try to kill them, and whenever they get sucked up, as they're getting sucked up, you should try to kill as many skulls as you can, because it's not a good time. Now here we do a scrape. Now I believe these gems take 6 shotgun shots if you have upgraded your hand, but I kind of give up after this one, because as you can see, here we go. They're getting sucked in, they're getting gravitated towards the mouth, and I'm trying to clear as much of them as I can to make sure that big ones don't pop out. Spawners, again, a complete priority, no more farming. We haven't been farming for a while, and we won't be until the end. Now, the really tricky thing about these spawners, unlike the previous couple minutes, spawners are, as I said again, they're at the outskirts of the edge. So you don't really have the luxury of spinning around them. Like previously, when the big level 3 spawner spawned, when we had the centipedes, I could kind of move with their natural spinning and really quickly kill all the sides. Here you're gonna notice me waiting for the sides to turn. Now, if you're waiting for a spawner to turn its gem towards you, you're losing precious time. But unfortunately, how these spawn, that's just the challenge of it. Again, I'm trying to clear as many skulls as possible. Now, what you're gonna notice that we are no longer in the waiting room. I'm not killing fast enough. Things are stacking. These skulls are spawning more and more of them. The spawners are getting out of control, and you can see that the board is just crazy at this point. And believe me, it's gonna get even crazier. So what you're gonna see me do is, I am circle strafing right now. I'm using the kind of the most simple strategy in FPS, just circle strafing the arena, because I literally cannot keep up. The good thing about Devil Daggers is, while it does not solve the problem of circle strafing, it does punish it sufficiently because of its shmup spawning structure. You're essentially stalling. Now, this stalling is not gonna save you, it's gonna give you some more time, but as you can see, I just get completely overrun here. More and more waves spawn, and I keep losing control, and you can see my hand literally shaking, because now we're getting close to the end. I try to scrape as much as I can. These spiders are really big. And what you just saw, I shot out, I believe, all of my homing gems. Now, this is kind of the point where I personally cashed out. I've been stacking gems for the entire run, I've been farming, I've been doing my best not to let them get sucked up or disappear, all for this moment where I just unload all of them on the field to help me, because I need to buy that precious time. I need to clear the entire arena, because otherwise I'm gonna be overrun. Now, as you can see, the homing gems did a hell of a job. Almost the entire board is clear again. And now there's a little bit of calm here. Boom. As if the other centipedes weren't enough, we have centipede level 3. Now these will float in the sky, and I've never been able to kill even one. This is actually the great thing about Devil Daggers. I've played 150 hours of it, and I haven't even gotten to the loop waves. That's how much content this game has in the way of challenge. Again, another shmup bomb we do here with the homing gems, just to kind of try to gain some sort of safety. You can see as soon as I get gems, I just shoot them out, because I'm here in the uncharted zone. I haven't practice this as much as the previous sections. I'm not comfortable here, so I'm trying to get as much advantage as I can. Interestingly enough, these gems, the unloading, this actually is going to happen in every player's run. However, better players than me will do it way later. You're essentially the entire run you're stockpiling for that final moment where you just need to buy more time that you can't gain just through sheer positioning or aim. You can see that I'm not even able to kill the phantom skulls quick enough, and you can see them start spewing out their upgraded version from the Leviathan. Also, I want to talk a little bit about this enemy right here, the Spike. They're very interesting because it seems that they don't do much. Their entire purpose is just to show up in the arena. But the way they show up is they pop out of the ground. So you're going to notice for the last minute or so, I've been circle strafing the arena very consistently, right? And that's been, I would say, with the exception of some enemies, been pretty safe. A lot of the enemies try to catch up, they get left behind, I'm just circle strafing. Now these spikes, what they do is they make that whole process more complicated. Because while I'm circle strafing, they might pop up in front of me. And this is actually where Devil Daggers' FPS perspective really shines. Because my damage is tied to my vision. I have to sometimes turn around. I have to shoot enemies behind me. But shooting enemies behind me leaves where I'm going unseen. So I might not see the spike coming out of the ground, and I might run into it and die immediately. I'm giving you a little bit of foreshadowing here for how the run is gonna end. They're also incredibly tanky, so if you actually want to kill them, you have to play it really well. Otherwise, they're just gonna be there forever essentially. They're gonna be getting in your way. These are not small objects. Another spider. Here, as you can see, I've just completely lost control. This is really the beauty of shmup auto-scrolling tap spawning. I was so confident early in the run, I was clearing everything, I was on time, and now suddenly the entire board is overrun, the arena is full of spiders, centipedes, spawners, I cannot keep up. I literally cannot. So the game is always inevitably moving towards its end. And the interesting thing is all the spawns feed into each other. Because I cannot kill these spawners fast enough, a lot of skulls spawn. And because a lot of skulls spawn, a lot of them enter the Leviathan and get spewed out upgraded. But the reason why I can't kill the spawners is because you have these spikes getting in my way. And also the skulls that were upgraded being on my ass and me having to deal with them. It's kind of this blended loop of every single enemy type influencing each other, and I think that's just beautiful. I love this freaking game. So yeah, I'm just circle strafing here. Like, I've completely given up on catching up to the timer, so I'm just trying to buy time. I want those 500 seconds like you wouldn't believe. And there it is. That's the beauty of the FPS perspective. I was trying to clear the level 3 skull behind me, and I just ran into a skull that was coming from the other side. And that's all because I could not see it. I could not see it because my damage had to be focused on an enemy behind me. Now, if we were playing this from a top-down perspective only, I would be able to see the skull coming. I'd be able to strafe around it. But I couldn't here. Just the fact that you're looking out from your FPS eyes adds so much depth to even the lowest common denominator strategy of circle strafing. So yeah, that's essentially the run. Here we go. 502 seconds. This is about 8 minutes and I believe 33 seconds. This took me 150 hours to get over the course of 2-3 months, playing a little bit every single day. And when I tell you, when I got that dagger popping up on my screen to signal that I've gotten the achievement and I've hit 500, my hands were just completely shaking. I was jumping all around my room. It was almost a religious experience. This is where we have to part ways, but I assure you, I will be making more videos about Devil Daggers. I'll be making more videos about Hyper Demon because I believe this design needs to be talked about, and I believe these games are the future of FPS, And if developers actually study them and they actually iterate, we're going to end up in a very nice place in the genre.